All rights reserved. No part of this book may be used or reproduced in any manner whatsoever without written permission except in the case of brief quotations in critical articles or reviews. Copyright 2020 by N.Y.B. Chapter 1. Armed officers had been escorting me from the jail cell toward the container next to the police station. When I was 10 feet away from the frosted metal door, the sergeant in the front slid it to open, letting freezing vapors and cold air rush at me, chilling my breast, and twirling around my naked legs as I was wearing a knee-length dress. With a gun barrel pressed on my spine, I stepped in through the door, frostbiting chill stinging my bare soles and the sharp crystals dipping my skin. Its walls covered with thick ice, and icicles dangling from its ceiling. The container was about 30 feet long and 9 feet wide. In the middle of it was a frozen corpse with no clothing. The cadaver I was gazing at was split in half from where the groin would be and lay on its side facing me. It was only the upper portion, and the rest of it missing. Looking at the cut made through the hip bones, I guess the killer must have used a big electric saw with fine teeth. Also, noticing solid blue and red circles branded on its left and right breast, I thought that the murderer might somehow be connected to the magical blue and red fluid, also known as the sacred drinks. "Where did you hide the other half of it?" yelled the police chief. "I'm not the killer," I said, turning back to look at the chief, who held a willow stick freshly broken off a tree. "I have never seen the priest and never been in these mountains." "Don't lie to me. To get the formula, you took his life." Then, he glanced at one of the officers. "She isn't admitting her crime. After I'm done here, take her back to the cell. Beat her until her bones break and her heart collapses." I had been hearing these kinds of threats from the investigators all night. Besides beating and taunting me, they had been forcing me to stand on one foot and to keep my hands up, and pouring buckets of cold water over my head. I hadn't murdered anyone, so there was nothing to admit. All accusations against me are false. Tossing my hair away from my chest with the tip of the stick, the chief ground his teeth. "Do you imagine how painful it would be if I hit your ear with it?" I said nothing. I had learned my lesson last night not to show any weakness or to be too defiant. Neither to look away nor stare at the assaulting officers. When they had pulled my hair, I had begged him not to, but they had become more aggressive, pulling it harder and more often. "To get the recipe and to finish your dissertation, you killed him. Who else is involved? My doctoral work has nothing to do with his death. Do I have the formula? No. Am I able to finish my work? No. Do I cooperate with anyone? No. Don't fool me, you damn liar," yelled the chief, brandishing the willow stick. Thinking that my ear was a target, I pulled my hair down, raising my shoulders, but felt the excruciating pain on my left hip. And hoping the slack of my dress would absorb the next impact, I leaned to the left, but he ended up hitting my right thigh. Then, unable to tolerate the pain, I turned back and ran toward the back corner, trying to jump over the corpse, but my feet slipping on the ice, and losing my balance mainly because my hands were cuffed in the back, I fell on it with my chest. Moments later, 2 officers dragged me out of the freezer and brought me to the front yard of the police building, which was about 100 feet away. There, the chief was talking on a mobile phone. One of the officers holding me whispered to the other one, "He is speaking with the Minister of Internal Affairs. It's about Helga. Since I was brought here, it was for the first time any police staff had ever referred to me by my given name. According to what I had overheard, the priest's frozen corpse was delivered here by a drone yesterday morning. On the same day, about 10 a.m., when I was attending a lecture among hundreds of students, a dozen armed police officers in SWAT uniforms had stormed the university auditorium and detained me. Then, a convoy of 5 police cars had traveled 600 kilometers to bring me here. Half an hour later, after going in and out of the building several times and making more calls, the chief and his deputy led me to the back seat of the police car. I didn't know where they would take me. Would they show me the other half of the dead body, or would they shoot me? I trembled with dread. The chief on the passenger side and his deputy driving it, the vehicle took off with sudden acceleration. And it went down the hill on a dirt road. Before reaching the river, it came to a screeching halt and spun 90 degrees to the left and sped up along the river. And it turned right to cross a wooden bridge between 2 apple trees. After traveling for about 4 miles on a snaking road and reaching the top of a crag, they stopped the vehicle and got me out of it. I stood trembling. I thought that they might rape and kill me, but the chief unshackled my hands. Then, his right hand pointing toward Red Mountain, he said, "Behind that summit, there is a road inside a gorge. Around 6 p.m., a green, off-road vehicle will arrive from the east. Make sure to go down there and stop it." "Who is it? Where does he take me?" "The minister didn't give me his name, but you know him. 2 of you will go to the same place from where the drone had brought the corpse." "Are you releasing me?" "No. You'll be listed as an escaped killer. At 6 p.m., we'll start a massive manhunt to capture you, but by then 2 of you must make it to some place impossible for us to reach. If caught, we'll take you back to jail. You must find the killer and bring us the other half of the corpse." I didn't think I could fulfill his demands. Nevertheless, I wished to be free and search for the assassin instead of rotting in jail. "Where is that unreachable place?" "You know when you get there." "What if I don't see the green car or can't make it to wherever it's or can't find the killer?" "That is your problem. In 48 hours, you must prove that you're innocent. Otherwise, you'll be convicted of homicide and shot by the firing squad. You are lucky so far. If someone else in your place, he or she would be tortured to death." A man with good connections had called our investigators last night. He had told him that he would make you cooperate with us if we didn't kill or maim you. The chief paused. "That's why you weren't carried out from the jail cell on a stretcher. You won't get a second chance. Now, be thankful and don't waste time. Go." Nodding, I turned back and ran toward Red Mountain. Chapter 2. Walking along a narrow ridge, I came across 4 semi-spherical yurts of nomadic people. From behind an evergreen tree, I observed the area. Children were going up and down, sliding on the green slope to the left. And women were rushing around their huts, perhaps busy with their chores. To bypass the settlement, I would need to go down the sharp cliff to my right and then climb up again if still alive. The alternative, dropping down from the left side, would be even more dangerous and take a longer time to travel. "Isn't it better to go straight?" I asked myself. "Sure, it is," I answered my own question. "They'll give you food, drinks, and footwear. Then, you'll continue your path toward Red Mountain. People in this region are hospitable. They'll treat you kindly." So, I went down the terrain, but dogs from the yurts attacked me. To escape them, I climbed up a boulder. And from there, I began throwing rocks over them. Thinking that I was tossing food at them, the canines kept running back to fetch the stones. My confrontation with them kept going on until a woman saw me and called the beasts. Moments later, I had made it there. Several women gathered around me. So, I told them, I have to make it to Red Mountain. I need food, drinks, and a pair of shoes. "Come inside," said an old woman among them. "We'll get you everything you need and a horse too. We honor strangers and treat them with respect." Glad about a friendly welcome, I entered the door and sat cross-legged on the mattress at the far corner next to the stack of pillows. As I took a bite of a flatbread, 2 old men entered the door. The one with a turban was tall, and several medals decorated his chest. The other one, short and skinny, wore an embroidered square-shaped hat. "Who is she?" asked the man with a turban, in a rough voice. "She is a poor woman in need of help. My wife invited her inside," replied the skinny old man. "Don't start any trouble." "No, she is a spy. I'll hand her over to KGB." I stood up. "What do you mean?" "I'm writing a dissertation on magic drinks and the other world. I was accused of a murder. So I spent the last night in jail. But they let go of me because they want me to catch the killer." "Do you think the police would be stupid enough to release a spy? Do you think a spy would know the names of these places?" The old man in the turban stepped closer. He looked down at my knees. "You have no trousers, no shoes, and a strange story. You are a well-trained saboteur to fool naive people." He looked back at a few young females. "Bring a rope and my gun. We'll tie her up and deliver her to the village Soviet and call the KGB from there." While the young females went away, I shuddered with fear. If I couldn't make it to Red Mountain, I would die in police custody. How could I explain to him that I was an ordinary citizen? "You're crazy, Sadiq. Why are you suspecting her?" said the skinny man. Sadiq hissed with anger and rolled his sleeves. "Even with shrapnels to my head, I'm smarter than you. You had deserted the war. But I went there to defeat Hitler. There I killed many SS officers and slept with their wives. Now it's your turn to die, traitor." While people mourn your death, I'll marry your wife, he said, wrapping his right arm around the skinny man's neck and taking him to the ground. As his victim turned blue and was unable to breathe, Siddiq said, "Say that I'm as great as Stalin." "No, you're insane." As women around there cried and howled, trying to break the fight, I yelled, "Shut up, everyone." When all of them paused to look at me, I said, "Hey, Siddiq. Release your neighbor. Otherwise, you'll rot in jail. I can take anyone's life. No one can put me in prison. Look at my medals." Despite his claim of immunity from criminal prosecution, I was sure that if he killed the skinny man, either he would go to jail or be locked up in a mental institution. Yet, it would be pointless for me to argue with him about the laws. Instead, I had to do something dramatic to defuse the conflict and escape. "You are right to suspect me. In fact, I'm a genie. I'm 1,000,000 times more harmful than spies. Those who go against me will die from terrible ailments. Does anyone know why I'm bare feet? Well, if I had my shoes on, I would become invisible." I had read and heard many stories about genies, creatures living in the unseen world, some of them looking like humans. Sometimes they would marry people too, but I wasn't sure if they would disappear upon wearing shoes. "You are tricking us, aren't you? Either way, I'll tie you up," Siddiq said, releasing the skinny man and taking the rope from the young women who had brought it. I laughed. "How foolish you are to think I'll leave you alone. The main reason I'm here because I had been dreaming of you," I said, picking up 2 flatbreads from the dining cloth and walking toward the door. "First, let me show you who I'm before you and I get married. You will be the first and luckiest man to unite with a genie." Their hands trembling, most of the females moved away from me. But an old woman came closer. "Go away, you shameless witch. I don't let you ever be in bed with my husband. You're young and seductive but evil. Back off. Don't touch me," I growled. "In fact, I'm twice older than your husband. We genies live 1,000 years and don't age like you do. Guard her path. If she escapes, you women will pay the price," said Siddiq, running to the door and blocking it by stretching his arms apart. "She isn't a genie." "Oh, Siddiq, do you think I'll leave you?" "The answer is no. I'm not afraid of your wife either," I said, putting on a pair of female rubber shoes. "Everyone watch me how I disappear to the unseen world. But I'll return quickly because I want to be with him." "You aren't a genie," shouted Siddiq, glancing at my feet. "You're still here?" I looked around. "Oh, there are spirits inside here interfering with my powers. Either it's coming from one of these virgin women, or there is an amulet somewhere. Let me step out. Then you'll see how I turn into smoke, then to a snake, and slither under your blanket." Siddiq stepped out of the door, and with 4 other women, he formed a human chain, each one holding one another's hand and creating a semicircle to block my path. "You got the last chance to show your magic. All right, watch the sky," I said, dashing out of the door, going under 2 women's hands on the left, and running toward Red Mountain. "BAH, Okish," Siddiq shouted, and dogs ran after me. Breaking a piece of bread and looking back, I threw it as far back as I could. They raced after it trying to fetch. When they had eaten the bread and caught up after me again, I tossed another piece and kept doing so until I reached the peak of the rocky hill ahead. Then, I heard a gunshot and looked back. Siddiq was firing at me from a shotgun. I didn't look back. I had gotten what I needed. I still had 2 slices of bread left for myself to eat. And rubber shoes were protecting my feet, giving me a chance to jog faster, although I had been still suffering from existing cuts and thorns stuck on my soles. Chapter 3. In scorching heat, I sat above sheer cliff behind a juniper bush, my eyes glued at the road in the gorge. I didn't have a watch to check the time, but based on the length of my shadow and the sun's position in the sky, I guessed it was about 5 p.m. Looking east and west along the road, I could see as far back as 2 miles in each direction. Yet since my arrival here half an hour ago, nothing had passed except a few military trucks. Maybe, instead of stopping the green vehicle, I should escape to the mountains. But the police would bring sniffing dogs, catch me unless I would hide my tracks by walking upstream or downstream in rivers. Then, I'd remain a wanted fugitive and become a wild woman living in the mountains alone. Since I had done nothing wrong, I wished to prove that I was innocent. Finally, after about an hour, I saw the green car approaching from the east. There was only one type of off-road green vehicle, mostly driven by government officials. And since it was about the correct time, I ran down. I'd look at the driver from 50 feet away. If I didn't recognize or trust him, I'd run back. To my great astonishment, the person who came in a car was Ivan. As I sat on the passenger seat, he said, "Having heard of your arrest last night, I had been trying to get you out as soon as I could. The deal I secured with the police is good for both you and them. I don't think I can do what they want. I'm sure the other half of the corpse is in the secret compound. You'll find it." Ivan was a tall, blonde man. I had known him for the past 2 years. To help me with my dissertation, he had once advised me to steal the formula, the recipe for the magic drinks. Despite being behind on my doctoral work, I had rejected his idea. His advice was reasonable. There was no other way to finish it. And I couldn't find any book related to the sacred blue and red drinks. Many of my girlfriends, who considered him handsome, used to advise me to marry him, but I had decided not to. I had grown up in an orphanage. My parents were murdered when I was 3 months old baby. I was kidnapped at the age of 4 and had spent some time in the wild too. Unlike me, Ivan had grown up with his parents, who were important officials. His late father used to be the security chief at the Kremlin. His mother, who had also passed out, was a prominent scholar. So I rode with him toward the distant mountains where, as he claimed, would be the secret Soviet compound with a lab and a temple. Most Soviet cities and villages didn't have temples, churches, or mosques. But big cities had a few places of worship operated by the KGB, its officers serving there as undercover imams, priests, rabbis, and monks. The Soviet government was against religions in general, but it allowed the controlled practice of faith, mainly, to show the world that its citizens were free. It also used such places of prayer to bait and apprehend those in need of God's help. How strange. They had built a temple at a top-secret facility. After about 8 miles, the car crawled the dangerous road carved on a cliff wall. And going another 50 yards at the scary peak, we stopped at a gate. There, I saw watchtowers, radio locators, cannons, armored vehicles with machine guns, and an elongated one-story building. "Is it a border crossing?" I asked. "No, it's a checkpoint to enter the secret compound." 2 officers with Cyrillic B marked on their shoulder pads and automatic rifles cradled, approached. One of them stood behind, and the other one came to the driver's side. "You came to a restricted area. So, turn back right away. We both have permission to attend the annual party. And she will stay there for 2 days to conduct scientific research." Passports. Handing his passport to the officer on his side, Ivan glanced at me. "I don't have it," I said. "I was arrested yesterday, and the police had taken mine. Go get it." "Without it, we don't allow anyone," replied the officer. "We'll be late." Ivan checked the time on his wristwatch. "The party is once a year, and it starts at 7 p.m. It's impossible to do that in 45 minutes. You have all the info about her. Open the database and verify her identity. She's right here in front of you. Without an ID, we can't do anything." The officer looked away. My heart raced, knees trembled. By now, the police must have launched a manhunt to capture me. If I couldn't pass the gate, I'd go back to jail. Passport is nothing but paper, only a formality. As long as I have prior permission to be there, that is fine. The officer glared at me. "Either we detain and send you back, or you'll leave on your own." Ivan leaned back. "I'll call the KGB headquarters. Although GB inscribed on our shoulder pads, we don't obey the KGB. We get the orders from General Grozny and Nishinakiyev. Both of them report directly to General Secretary. You have no choice but to turn around and hit the road." "I know all that stuff. Give me 10 minutes to handle this," Ivan said, raising the windows and backing up the car. Going in reverse for about 100 feet. He stopped, made a phone call, and explained the situation. After listening to what appeared to be the instruction, he ended the call and looked at me. "They accept a secret passphrase instead of a passport. Do I have to call someone? Or can you get it for me? It comes from another dimension. I can't consume the blue liquid because I'm driving. Also, they wouldn't give me your password. You have to obtain it yourself." "Where would they get the code that nobody knows?" I asked, hearing distant sirens and shaking from fear. "Don't question everything. Later, you'll learn how they do that." It didn't make any sense. Why would the parallel universe care about me? But I was ready to do anything to escape the police. So I shouted, "Give me that damn blue thing." He handed me a 4-ounce bottle. Quickly checking its seal, I opened it and smelled wood, earth, a hashy aroma emanating from it. Then, my knees and hands shaking, hoping it wasn't poison, I gulped it. It went down my throat, setting my stomach on fire, and giving me an awful taste. Chapter 4. This was for the first time that I had ever tried the blue liquid. A few minutes after drinking it, I still felt nauseated, yet my anxiety disappeared. "Ivan, the cliffs around us, and the trees looked more vivid. How do you feel?" "It takes a few minutes before you start seeing the parallel universe," he said, staring into my eyes. "The effect will last for 12 hours. You would be seeing 2 dimensions until tomorrow morning." There were many varieties of magic drinks. Many of them were made from natural plants and exotic flowers, while others were developed by scientists using sophisticated chemicals. All of them would enable consumers to see creatures and to interact with the world otherwise invisible. My dissertation was about the blue and red sacred drinks, which were the most sought after. Even the substances developed by the CIA's MK-Ultra and the Soviet Union's mind-altering projects were nowhere close to being as good as these magical fluids. "It's burning my intestines, but I feel brave. If there was a rope, I could walk on it from here to the other side of the gorge," I said, noticing glowing butterflies flying around, and observing the world entirely different than the once I had seen 10 minutes ago. After a moment, I saw a giant bird, its rainbow-colored wings big enough to cover a soccer stadium, flying over a peak across the ravine. Swooping above huge trees and a gigantic waterfall, the bird landed nearby and opened its beaks. As I thought that it might swallow me together with the car, fear crawled my body and adrenaline scorched my intestines. Then, gaping at the stairs inside its beak, I realized it wasn't a real fowl but a giant mechanical creature. Moreover, Ivan wasn't showing any sign of observing it, and the guards by the gate too weren't looking at it unless they had seen it 1,000 times. So, it had to be from the other dimension. As I sat frozen, a tall woman in a pink dress and short black hair walked down the stairs, stretching all the way back to the bird's throat. What was also surprising that she looked like an ordinary human, except her eyes had different colors, one green and the other blue. While I stared at her to study her traits, she said, "I'm here to give you the code and to warn you." "Why? What will happen to me?" "How do you know?" I asked. "I'll answer your questions tonight. Your life is in danger whether you cross this gate or not," she said. "But for now, move forward. Your password is blue-red. I didn't kill the priest. Red-blue. Don't tell it to anyone. Only use it as directed by the state security. Now hurry up. The police are about to arrive. One more thing, never tell anyone anything about me." I glanced at Ivan. "Drive. Go fast." "I got it." At the checkpoint, inside the kiosk, the voice asked, "Say your name and password, place both palms on the glass surface, and look at the lenses ahead." As I fulfilled the instructions, its green lights flashing, it said, "Helga Erman is allowed to proceed." When I stepped out of the booth, I saw 3 police cars accelerating toward me. While I froze in a shock, they came to a crashing halt at the crossing line, and officers stormed out and ran toward me. To escape them, I bolted toward the building behind the gate and heard him shout, "The crime investigation. Attention, Helga Erman must be handed over to us. She is wanted for murder." And a police helicopter hovered above. "It's a prohibited area," the state security announced via loudspeakers, firing in the air from their machine guns. "All police officers must leave the area immediately and follow proper channels to take her back. This is the last warning." As machine guns aimed at them, the police officers trotted back to their cars, and their helicopter above turned around and sailed away. I strode past the checkpoint, gazing at the other universe's high elevations and giant birds in the sky, and listening to crashing sounds of waterfalls. "Get in," Ivan said, driving his vehicle along the road to my left. Hopping in the car, I pointed to the stone castle across the ridge. If I went there, would the police be able to catch me? He squinted as if peering at the sun from a tree shadow. "You can't use anything that belongs to the parallel world. You see them because the blue drink activated your brain's neurons." "What do you mean?" "For example, you can't catch a dog and bring it to this dimension. Or you couldn't climb castle stairs that belong to another world," he said, gliding his palm on my naked thigh. Pushing his hand away, I said, "What good is it if I can't travel to the other world?" Driving forward, he said, the blue liquid only activates your senses. To go up to castle towers of the other universe, you need the red drink. Then, you would walk in the other dimension like you're in this. Give it to me. I'll try it, I said, hoping that I might end up finding shelter in the other world if everything else failed. Only Nishan has it. He won't give it to anyone. As a friend, if you asked him to give a sip of it, wouldn't he? I said, still thinking that there would be some way to obtain the red fluid. He wouldn't. He claims that it's lethal, killing 6 out of 10 who consume it. Is he worried about its harm? No, the real reason is to control humanity. He had produced only 1 liter of the red liquid and kept it secret. Each milliliter can be sold for 1 ton of gold, but he wouldn't sell either. He paused, pointing to the left at facility surrounded by a stone wall. But when it comes to the blue drink, it's made at that factory, which is the only one on Earth. Is it hard to produce it elsewhere? I could see the factory despite a giant tree from the parallel universe partially blocking my view. The recipe and process of making the blue and red drinks are secrets, which no one, not even the KGB, knows. Until now, I had assumed there was nothing on Earth the KGB didn't know. Can't anyone working at the factory steal the process of making it? Unfortunately, no human has ever seen the inside of it. Only robots operate the plant. Chapter 5. When we reached the end of the ridge, I saw the mansion at the foothills of a towering mountain, shrouded in clouds of mist. There stood a lake before it, reflecting the stunning mountain scenery. As we drove further, I could see it was on a jutting peninsula with a suspended bridge from the direction we were approaching. And a stone passage was on the other side, where the helicopters and mountain trains were arriving. Only 1 road leads to the peninsula from each side, he said, accelerating toward the blood-curdling bridge that was rocking like a huge swing. Water was falling from the rock face, bursting under it, and tossing it high up. While going across, the vehicle swayed side to side, water splashes pounding from every direction. I clutched the handle and shut my eyes. Ivan parked the vehicle half a mile away from the mansion near the tower on a hill facing the lake. There, he took out big, ostentatious sapphire diamond earrings and a red diamond ring and laid them on a white velvet fabric on his left palm. Placing his right arm on my shoulder, he offered them to me. Was he going to ask me to marry him? But no matter what, I was prepared to reject the gift. I can't take it. I pushed his hand back. No doubt, the gift was precious. The red diamond was masterfully crafted and appeared pink, yellow, and often colorless with a little movement. You won't be obligated to marry me. I can throw them in the trash. But would you go like this with cheap copper earrings? At the party, women will be dressed lavishly and have a lot of gold and diamonds. I was wearing the cheapest female rubber shoes that I had stolen from the nomadic people. And I hadn't taken a shower, my hair wasn't combed, and my dress had many stick seeds, wrinkles, and stains. I wasn't in a shape to be at any party. And with the precious jewelry he was giving me, I would look odd. Wouldn't the guests think how this poor girl, who couldn't afford a proper shirt, bought diamond earrings? Also, saving my life was one of my most pressing concerns, everything else secondary. Does anyone know I'd be searching for the killer? No. Officially, you are here to do your dissertation. Finding the assassin and escaping jail are your personal issues to figure out. But the police believe that the murder is carried out to obtain the formula. Do they really think I killed the priest? They may or may not. But since you are the only person interested in the magic drinks, they'll torture you. You'd have no choice but to confess to the crime or find the killer. If they don't catch the assassin in 2 days, General Secretary will fire the Minister of Internal Affairs. Don't they suspect anyone else? I think the murderer is working with the police to frame you for the crime. I said nothing. I was between a rock and a hard place. If they find out that you want the formula or investigate the priest's death, they'll end your life. So, don't tell anyone. My heart halting for a moment, I glanced at the mansion. Can we go now? I didn't want to be late. Otherwise, I'd be denied entry into the building and kicked out of the secret compound. He looked at his golden watch with red diamond stones. We have a bit more time. I won't force you to take them, but I don't want you to be degraded at the party among wealthy people with nothing on you. You can return them to me later. I won't pretend to be rich. You're prone to bad luck. This jewelry has stones from a sacred shrine. It can ward off misfortune. He smiled. I didn't believe in its holy power, but thinking that it would bring good luck made me less anxious. All right, I'll give them back to you after the party is over, I said, sliding the red ring on my finger and putting on earrings. How do they look? Very nice, he said, bringing his lips close to mine. We kissed and embraced one another, and his left hand slid under my dress. 2 bird-shaped spy planes landed at the peak overlooking the secret Soviet compound. Flamingo, who had supplied the passcode to Helga, came out of the first plane and hurried to the next one. Kusoy, Colonel General of Heart Intelligence, had requested her to meet him. Striding on the corridor, she arrived at an oval room. There were many guards, and Kusoy was pacing on the stage under the king's portrait. And 2 agents, a male and female, stood facing him. When she lined up next to others, he said, "You broke the protocols of interaction." Flamingo said nothing, wanting to know more details. She wasn't sure how much he knew about her attempts to derail the ongoing operation. Her goal was to warn Helga and pass the message that the world was in danger. Kusoy stepped down from the stage. And walking in front of her and the other 2 officers, he said, when delivering the passphrase to Helga, "You arrived there in a surveillance craft and made yourself visible to her. She was told that the parallel universe would give her the passcode. So, I did what she would have expected. You have your own brain to think. Didn't you know Helga would be meeting Nishan and might blurt out? You must not be seen at all times unless authorized to interact. You could have spoken to her through invisibility cloaked objects. Or you could have sent talking drones that resemble Soviet prototypes. I told her not to tell anyone about me," said Flamingo. "That isn't enough. You also warned her that her life would be in danger." Flamingo said nothing. Helga was going to be killed, and there was a nuclear bomb on the tower by the mansion. Something had to be done. You weren't supposed to say anything other than giving the password. He glanced at the guards. "Lock her up. She's a threat." As they grabbed her elbows, Flamingo said, "Did Heart agents install the bomb? I'm hearing about the hydrogen device for the first time. We would never do such a thing. Yet, it shows us how messed up and crazy this world is. Terror plots like you are describing make us more determined to intervene. Then, why don't you inform Helga, who will alert the guards at the secret compound?" She could see that Kusoy was lying. How wouldn't Heart Intelligence know about a bomb under its nose? He paused, looking at the remaining officers. "2 of you, Hummingbird and Shiny Head, go to the mansion. Also, take 9 agents with you. Carry out all assigned tasks professionally. Don't tell Helga anything about the nuclear bomb. In the meantime, I'll find out more about it." As 2 guards dragged her, Flamingo shouted, "The cruel king will ruin both worlds. But I'm not alone. Locking me up won't help. We'll stop him. Don't curse His Majesty, you traitor," Kusoy yelled, firing a bullet at her chest. "I should have informed Helga right there and then," said Flamingo and collapsed. Chapter 6. My research used as a cover, I was arranged to come here, to the top-secret facility, to unfold the murder. My heart bracing for what would come next, I gazed at fairies flying over the lake. Forming circles and gyrating in the sky, they dived into the lake and disappeared for a moment. Then, they flew out of there and passed overhead. Except for their wings, they looked human. So, I waved at them. I turned to Ivan. "I wish you could see what I see. It's wonderful. A group of women is flying in the air." Looking somber, he said, "I know you care about the beauty and marvels you see. But you need to be thinking about finishing your dissertation and escaping the murder accusation. I guess the recipe would be linked to the killing. If I could uncover it, I might find clues to the murder as well." "Where would I search for the formula?" I asked. "Nobody knows except Nishan. That's why you are here. If you follow him to his secret workplace, you would find it." "What if I see the other half of the priest's body there?" I didn't think I would find the corpse, but I said so anyway. "He will kill you right there because he wouldn't want a witness. But don't panic. Instead, pretend to believe that the priest died of a heart attack." Not knowing what to say, I looked away. I wasn't sure how much I could achieve in 48 hours, the length of time I was allowed to stay and the deadline given by the police. Humanity and God need your help, Helga. The sacred drinks are our connection to the spiritual world. As such, they belong to the people, to everyone's, irrespective of poverty or wealth. Unlike many Soviet citizens who were afraid of being arrested if they talked about the Almighty, Ivan spoke a lot about God. Nodding, I said, "Let's go." I had heard enough about humanity's dire need for the sacred drinks. At the mansion entrance, dressed in earth-colored uniforms, armed state security personnel guided us to the lobby, where a man in a black suit took the vehicle for parking, and a woman in a short red skirt ushered us to the entrance. While we stood in line for the security check, a robot approached and gave each of us a box. I had nothing to place, but everyone did so, following the robot's instruction. The Soviet government had created all kinds of phenomena, including intelligent robots, flying saucers, but all these weren't available for ordinary people to see. Its military had secret weapons nobody had ever seen or heard of. The leaders didn't display such things to people because foreign spies would steal them. So, I expected to see more surprising things once we entered the mansion. Following others, I stepped through a metal detector. Then, another robot scanned my body and let me continue to the device with a flat glass screen. Once I placed all my fingers on its surface, it displayed a green light, and I moved to the next step, the iris scanner. Chapter 7. Ivan and I walked into a 3-story high glass dome that gave light to an indoor garden filled with trees and flowers. Exotic birds and butterflies that I had never seen were flying overhead. Straight ahead were dual spiraling staircases going to the second floor. An intricate golden chandelier decorated with precious stones hung overhead. As the mansion staff escorted us to a ballroom on the right, I could see a stunning mountain view through a glass wall on the right. Men were roaming around with champagne glasses with golden rims. Their female companions wore revealing miniskirts or opulent gowns, gold necklaces, and pearl bracelets. Looking at a table with food and drinks and not recognizing many of them, I asked, "What is that?" "The one you're pointing to is Persian almas caviar. Per pound, it costs more than 24-karat gold. Next to it are Yabari king melons from Japan. They are costlier than Persian caviar. As far as I knew, the most delicious melons and all sorts of them grew on the Hungry Steppe, between Samarkand and Tashkent. Yet, the Soviet leaders had exchanged shiny Uzbek gold to the Japanese fruit, which they could have gotten for free from local farmers. Is there anything ordinary? I don't want to eat expensive food. There must be a shortage of it. There is nothing cheap. Even water and bread here cost a fortune. But don't worry, everything is free for us." He smiled. "Look at the labels. Those are magic mushrooms, blowfish, and Italian white truffle fungus. Each bottle of any wine here costs more than £1 of gold. You can drink as much of it as you want." Shocked by such mind-blowing luxuries, and saying nothing, I glanced at sealed blue drink bottles stacked at table centers. Ivan looked at a waitress. 1 glass of Uzimuzim red wine and a glass of sparkling water. He knew that I had never tasted the alcohol and wasn't going to. So, the wine would be for him. While holding the glass of carbonated water, I noticed a skinny, red-haired woman in a pink dress with no jewelry at all, no earrings and no makeup. "Do you see that lady?" I said. "She has nothing. Even her clothing isn't the latest fashion. Why did you think I'd be embarrassed? If you were in her place, that would be all right." "What do you mean? She is the world's richest woman from Sweden. Textbooks taught it was evil to be wealthy. And foreigners were viewed as spies, carrying toxic information to poison the pristine minds of Soviet citizens. But here at the mansion built by the government, affluent people from all over the world were partying." I glanced once more at the red-haired lady. "I'd admire her. She's down to earth. You might until you learn more about her. She has a lot of enemies. Why? She gives money to thousands of organizations fighting against sacred drinks. Her lifelong goal is to wipe out the magic liquids from the face of the planet." I said nothing. It was strange why they invited the woman who had an ill will to get rid of the sacred fluids. I was learning a lot and felt as if I had entered another world, but I was in the southern Uzbek SSR. Soon, a tall, brawny male figure in a tan suit appeared. Beams shimmering on his face, he looked as handsome as Roman gods. He offered his hand to me. "Nice meeting you. I'm N.Y.B." Shaking his hand and feeling sparks moving through my arm to my heart, nearly unable to use my tongue, I managed to say, "Thank you." I was about to introduce myself. "Helga, you are Ivan's friend. General Grozny told me about you." I couldn't believe this guy, N.Y.B, would be the killer, but I had to discover his personality and dig into his psychology. My impression of him could be deceptive. And to be honest, so far, a lot of my opinions had been wrong. For example, based on TV shows, I used to believe that Soviet leaders would wear regular but neat clothing and eat the same food as every citizen. However, I was mistaken. We shall meet. I have a lot of questions to ask you, I said, noticing his eyes glued at me. Unable to stop looking at Helga and his heart racing, Nishan said, yes, see you later. In the meantime, enjoy the party. After meeting Nishan, a group of women caught my attention as they were talking about the sacred drinks and the priest's murder. Moreover, they spoke in a variety of accents, and some of them wore pins of countries such as Japan, South Africa, Norway, and Canada. To eavesdrop their conversations, I followed them, gazing at ancient artifacts, exhibits of the parallel universe, peculiar rocks, and large exotic indoor flowers. Among statues, I noticed transparent people with 6 hands and tall blonde furry humanoids. Amazed by these displays of the parallel universe, I became more determined to uncover the recipe of the magic drinks. If I found it, I would share it with the world and write every detail of it in my dissertation, giving every human ability to produce and consume these liquids. With them, I stopped before a 4-story stone wall that dissolved, creating a large opening where stood a frozen lake surrounded by rock and evergreen trees. There, on the ice, girls were skating, dancing, and spinning, the wind blowing their scarves and fluttering their skirts, and snowflakes falling on them. As we watched the performance, the airstream got stronger inside the opening, blowing the blizzard at us. So, unable to tolerate the frost-biting wind, we left the show. By the steaming purple pond, I said goodbye to others and headed to the ballroom. Chapter 8. Past midnight, at about 1 a.m., after Ivan had left, I noticed a bald man in a black shirt staring at me. He was holding a glass of vodka and wore a golden necklace with disc-shaped red ruby and a blue sapphire stone at its center. I turned away and walked in the opposite direction, but the man circled around and cut in front of me and said, "There is something that you and I have to talk about." Saying nothing, I turned away from him again but heard him say, "Are you afraid to face Akayev?" Then, crossing my path once more, he sat on a bar stool in front of me. "No, I'm not. I can stand up against anyone," I replied, looking at the tray of drinks and food a waitress had brought. "Great. Then someone can revolt against his monopoly on magic liquids. Have a drink. We'll talk. Don't be afraid of me." I sat down, facing him. "The formula is secret. Who is going to reveal it for the world?" "I have heard of these kinds of rhetoric before," I said. "Can't the world survive without the magic drinks?" He paused, glaring at me. "I didn't expect you'd say so." I realized I was terse, but was he thinking I'd do something about the recipe? "Where are you from?" I asked. "How do you know Nishan?" "That isn't important. I work for a company that supplies the KGB and the military with micro-drones, which are as small as bees and capable of crossing oceans and mountains. The lab here provides our drones with computer programs." He had a peculiar pronunciation and accent I had never heard of. So, unable to guess his country of origin, I became suspicious of him. Why didn't he and Ivan shake hands if the two had business connections? Indeed, he wasn't telling the truth. If he knew Ivan, he might have heard about me too. So, I asked him, "Do you know my name?" "You are Helga, a student of Eastern philosophy and civilization. I saw you talking to Nishan." I had not spilled that much info when I met Nishan. Did anyone tell this man about me? As I prepared to ask him a question, an athletic-looking woman in a miniskirt, with a cocky nose, short hair, and lots of cleavage visible, came and sat down next to him. Her skirt's hem was embroidered with gold, and she had a bracelet with sparkling diamonds and pearls. Placing one leg on the floor and the other leg on a footrest, showing off her red panties entirely made from rubies, she whispered something in his ear. Then, the bald man looked at me. "My friend would like to meet you in private. We'll assist you." "I don't need any help," I said. "We can't speak certain things in here. She will warn you. Please, go with her," he said, his jaw tight. So, wanting to know what she would say, I went after her. I didn't like these strange encounters, but how could I escape them? "Where do we meet?" I said. "Don't ask questions. Just follow me." She paused, looking back by the female restroom. "Get in there." Once we had gotten inside, bending down and checking the washroom stalls, she said, "There is nobody. Hang closed for cleaning sign on the door and shut it. Also, stack that trash can against it from inside." Any stupid person who doesn't read it will bump into the can. While cautious of being attacked, I did everything she asked me to do. What do you want to say? Literally peeling the skin on her chest, she opened a compartment and pulled out a photo ID with the KGB emblem. Then lifting her skirt, she retrieved a small pistol tucked in her panty. There was bushy brown hair growing in the area where she had hidden the weapon. Horrified, I froze. I had heard about drug dealers placing narcotics inside their body cavities to cross borders, or some of them cutting their abdomens and inserting heroin packages and sewing them back, and others swallowing diamonds, and so on. But I had never imagined it was possible to have a hidden compartment next to a woman's breast or have small pistols hidden in one's underwear. Holding the ID in front of my face, she said, "I go by the codename Hummingbird." Saying nothing, I stared at the guns, which the officer had tucked under her right bra. "Don't look at it. It's entirely made from plastic and is silent. It passes metal detectors. On X-rays, it shows as a part of my body. I kill only those who cross me, but you won't be the one who does so. I'm meeting you here because surveillance cameras are everywhere. They record every conversation. Only a few places, like the restrooms, don't have mics and cameras." "Why wouldn't they put mics here?" I asked. Hummingbird's speech had fewer accents than that of the bald man, but it wasn't flowing naturally as if she were a perfectly trained foreigner. She seemed to be forcing herself not to make any mistake by pausing to think. To provide personal privacy to high-ranking people, including the Soviet leadership, who use these washrooms. Also, we verified that there is no hidden camera and mics in this location. We aren't stupid. We know what we are doing. Chapter 9. Hummingbird said, "We need your cooperation in stealing the formula. It is an important national treasure for the Soviet people and the world." I thought Nishan accounts to the highest authority. How is it possible that you go behind his back? My partner and I work for the first chief directorate, the Psychological Operations Unit. We directly report to General Secretary, bypassing the KGB chairman. Nishan's days are numbered. He's refusing to hand over the recipe. Despite being KGB officers, these guys were stupid. Wasn't it easy to fire Nishan or arrest him and take the formula? It was the Soviet territory, and there were military bases all around the mountains. Were they playing a game with me? Maybe they had nothing else to do. If they directly reported to General Secretary, taking the recipe wouldn't be an issue. Concerned about what she said, I thought, if the KGB takes the formula, it'll hide it again. And the world would continue to be deprived of the magic drinks. So, instead of her, I have to find the recipe and reveal it in my dissertation. So, I said, I'm a researcher, not a thief. I don't spy or steal anything. Hummingbird pursed her lips. If you don't cooperate with this, then stop chasing the recipe. You know we can make your life miserable if we decide to. We could get you kicked out of here in 5 minutes. Regardless of how much you threaten, I won't. She pointed the gun at me. Even if I shot you on the hip, poison-coated bullets from it can travel to your heart and end your life instantly. We track individuals for many years before we select them. If we like, we'll make you the most powerful person with soaring wings able to fly. If you disobey us, we'll drown you alive in a swamp. We don't waste time on useless people. Annoyed by her threats, I said, I don't wish to fly. The ground is good enough for me. If you killed me, where would you hide my body? You can't get away if you murdered me right here. Then, I stormed out of the restroom and ran through the hall toward the back of the mansion. When I stood watching the green geezer, Hummingbird approached me and said, I apologize. I was too hard on you. I know you were stressed. She sounded genuine, and her smile appeared sincere. I was about to speak, but with a furtive look in her eyes, she grinned, placing her index finger across her lips. We don't talk business out here. Tell me about yourself. I like your earrings. You look beautiful. I understood that she couldn't speak on sensitive topics. Thanks. But I've been wearing this crinkled dress since yesterday. I grew up in Ashgabat, Turkmenistan. My grandma used to see the neighbor wearing a new suit and say, he is the same donkey except he got a new saddle. And your wrinkled clothing is a great person that is you, Helga. I smiled despite realizing what her grandma had said was weirdly in opposition to the spirit of what Hummingbird herself was trying to express. Thanks. I appreciate your compliment. Seriously, you need to relax. I'll take you for a scenic ride and show you beautiful things you haven't seen. Fun and cheers come first, then business. Going for a tour, we sat on a glass train, which wouldn't require an exit or entry security check because its doors would always remain closed. As we traveled through an ice tunnel with frozen animals and trees, Hummingbird said, those creatures and plants lived millions of years ago. Everything you see doesn't belong to the parallel universe. We are inside our own world's cavern with the superimposed ice tunnel of the other dimension. I notice you can see the parallel world. Have you consumed a blue liquid? Do KGB officers drink too? How else would I see the other universe? Do you think we don't have mouths? Like you need fun, so do I, and so does everyone. Enjoyment is engraved in our DNA. I laughed. You are hilarious. I hope you've given up on your request. No, I haven't. I'm at your mercy, or else General Secretary will chop my head off. Well, not literally, but close enough. She grinned. Our interests are clashing. For 3 years, we have been trying to get the formula. We don't want you to screw up our plans. That is why we are going to prevent you from moving forward. You call it clashing goals, but we both want to save it. I need it for my research in addition to protecting it. Can we work together? If Hummingbird carried out the task, I would neither finish my dissertation nor uncover the murder. And I'd go back to jail. So, for the sake of preserving the precious formula and saving my own life, I had to take possession of the recipe before the KGB did. It was past midnight, technically already Saturday. After a lengthy argument with Hummingbird, I said, I'm not giving up my plans. You are stubborn. All right, you can go, but must visit the secret lab as soon as possible. Memorize everything you see, including the directions. Don't write down or draw anything. Otherwise, you'll be caught. Ask him to show how he gets his daily work started. Remain always physically very close to him. Most likely, you'll come across the lower half of the priest corpse in his workplace, but pretend like you didn't see or don't care about it. Later, you'll tell me everything. How do I contact you? I asked, looking at zebras grazing in the field. It would be a great achievement for me to find both the formula and the other half of the dead body, especially both of them in one place and at the same time. You can't reach me. I'll find you if I need to. She paused. One more thing to warn you. If you tip Nishan off, you will be charged with treason, a crime that carries the death penalty. Don't share any information with him. Tell him nothing about my partner and me. By hearing the death penalty, which would also be carried out for murder or theft of state property, my body shivered. I would face a firing squad or be sedated and shot behind my head. Never mind capital punishment, just the idea of going to jail terrified me. Prisons, where guards would break people's bones and pluck their hair, were worse than police detentions or interrogation rooms. I understand. I won't reveal the secrets to him or anyone else. Also, we have informed the guests about the unfair secrecy of the sacred drinks. Most of them are outraged and ready to fight. Regrettably, our best recruits don't have excellent oratorical skills. Yet, you have both of those qualities to start a riot against Nishan. We've told him that the woman in a blue dress is the leader, which is you. Chapter 10. Scanning Hummingbird head to toe, I said, orchestrating rebellion won't help. She rubbed her forehead with the back of her right hand as if she were sweating. Bloodshed and injuries will create international outrage and lead to Akayev's arrest, and it'll open a way for us to access his records. He's the murderer. Justice has to be done. It's time for him to pay back for your suffering too. And you'll be exonerated. So, we are leading multiple parallel operations with a single goal. If any of them fails, we'll use another as a backup. Out of many attempts, at least one will succeed. I lost my trust in Hummingbird's honesty. Earlier she had not told me anything about her plan of starting trouble. So, I suspected that she was fabricating accusations against Nishan to get the formula. If your goal is to get the recipe, do it lawfully, I said. Fights can kill innocent people. Time is short. If we aren't fast enough, he might burn or dissolve the corpse. I'm not a bad person, but I'm desperate. Also, we have granted immunity from prosecution to everyone who fights against those hiding the recipe. If you murder anyone, you will face no charges, but don't kill Nishan. The train stopped, and its doors opened. I couldn't speak anymore. Hummingbird had given me an awful piece of information, ending the conversation with a shock. It sounded like killing someone was better than a failure. We exited the train. I came back to the bar stool where the bald man was. In front of him, a side wall had opened, showing exotic dancers in bikinis climbing a pole and forming a flower shape. As the clock had struck 3 a.m., I saw guests passing toward the entrance dome. They were carrying champagne and wine bottles, many of them talking in foreign languages, some of them shouting, "Nish and Akai have killed the priest. There will be bloodshed. We must prevent the chaos," I said, looking at the bald man. "I'll stay here, but you go. You are the leader." More than the secrecy of the formula, the holy priest's murder is making them angry. It's not proven Nishan is the killer. I don't care who butchered the holy man, but they are blaming him. Staring at him, I said, "You stirred them up. So, it's your job to stop them." "Don't talk to me like that," the bald man shouted, standing up. "All I'm doing is expressing my opinion. Go. Do what you are supposed to be doing." He sneered and walked away. I had not agreed to this kind of leadership, but I went after the partygoers hoping to diffuse the hostility. I wanted to be impartial but faced a dilemma. If I defended Nishan, the guests would hate me. However, siding with them would make them more aggressive. I had to strike a balance, playing a fair game, arguing for both sides. When I came to the entrance dome, I heard a voice from a loudspeaker announce, "Attention everyone. Stay back in guest areas. Don't approach the stairs leading to the second floor." One guest shouted, "Shut up, idiot." And others bellowed, "Long live the revolution. Hooray, hooray. Down with Nishan." Moments later, more guests arrived, most of them staggering. All of them had some sort of weapon, mostly glass bottles, porcelain plates, tree branches, rocks taken from the indoor landscaping. Once all guests had gathered, Nishan appeared at the head of the stairs on the second floor. "I don't want anybody to get hurt," he said. "You all came here for the annual party. As such, you are obliged to remain peaceful or leave." "You brutally slaughtered the holy priest and stole the recipe," said a man with his own portrait on a platinum disc hanging from a golden necklace on his chest. "Confess your crime. Face justice and give us the formula." I did not. I had honored and respected him. "You are a liar. You'll pay the price of his blood. Next to the recipe is proof of the murder." Wanting to ease the conflict, I climbed the stairs toward Nishan and stopped midway between him and the crowd of guests below. Turning back, I said, "First, I warn everyone. It's a peaceful gathering. This is a non-violent protest against injustice, unfairness." Then, glancing at Nishan, I said, "Why did you hide the formula and the red liquid? Do you have insatiable greed?" Saying nothing, he stood looking at us. "Don't freeze like a statue. Share the recipe with the world," shouted one guest. Nishan nodded. "I have not consumed a single drop of the sacred drinks for 2 years," he said. "The blue one is dangerous. The red one is deadly. When it transports the drinkers into another world, they may never return. I consumed the blue one, and I'm fine," I said. "So have lots of people. How can you deprive humanity of these wonders? By hiding the recipe, you are committing moral depravity, wickedness." I paused, and the guests began hooting, screaming, and chanting, "Helga, we are with you. You are a hero." The red-haired Swedish lady, whom a group of people lifted up, shouted, "Nishan put an end to sacred drinks. Banish him from Earth. Destroy them. Keeping him secret isn't enough." I could see that the crowd was split, some against and some for the secrecy of the sacred drinks. After the yelling and hollering subsided, Nishan said, "With the beauty and wonders you see, and with heavenly songs you hear, come whispering evil manipulations, distractions. Your minds become overloaded, cutting you off from your surroundings. You will be attending places of worship in the other dimension. Many will have lovers from a different universe. It won't stop there. You'll turn into brainwashed zombies, killing your own people, and tearing down your own world. Down with Nishan. Shut him up. Stop the propaganda," bellowed a guest with sideburns. Nishan continued, "As creatures of this realm, we shall focus on this world alone. The other one isn't our business. I couldn't live there, and no one else can. Imagine you have a spaceship that takes you to a wonderful alien planet, which is at one corner of the Milky Way galaxy," said the guest with sideburns. "The secrecy of the recipe is the same as hiding the design of that spaceship." "No, it isn't," replied Nishan. The guest with sideburns continued, "We live side by side with the parallel universe, crossing into it and interacting with it all the time. Then, what makes you so biased against it? Are you afraid of its inhabitants?" "I'm not. It isn't about me alone. We all have many reasons to fear. Alien planets don't pose a danger for us, but the parallel dimension does. The man with the platinum disc on his chest walked up to the stairs and said, "We aren't here to listen to idiotic lectures. We all have immunities from prosecution. Let's rip off the enemy's legs and crush their skulls." Turning back, he pointed his hand at the red-haired woman. "That fanatic is on Nishan's side. Bring her here. We'll drop her head down from the second floor." A few men rushed, grabbing the red-haired lady by her hair, pulling her to the ground. While she screamed, they dragged her face down. Then, a husky man jumped and kicked on her back with the sole of his feet. At that moment, 6 security guards pounced on attackers. How cruel the husky man was to jump on the back of the defenseless woman. I suspected he might have seriously injured or killed this wealthy Swedish guest, who had been fighting for the eradication of the sacred drinks. The fight had escalated. I couldn't see what happened to the red-haired lady. But supporters of the magical fluids were still fighting those who were against their ideas, striking their opponents with bottles. With so much commotion, it was impossible to see who was hitting whom and who was on which side. The two rival groups were also clashing with the security officers. I was shouting to stop the bloodshed, but nobody listened to me. Revolting guests had knocked down 6 security guards and were dragging one by his legs and kicking the other 5 on the ground. About 15 more armed personnel had joined from downstairs, and more of them came from upstairs. The aggressors, whom I believed were supporters of sacred drinks, were throwing bottles, ripping huge paintings off the walls, breaking off indoor tree branches and hitting their opponents, yelling and howling. And they advanced toward Nishan, hurling shoes and porcelain plates at him. Several bottles flew by, and one of them struck my head. With a terrible pain, before closing my eyes, I saw robots descending the stairs, shooting sparks.